you can get your ass kicked. Anybody who's talking this shit, that shit, you can get your ass kicked. Anybody who's talking this shit, that shit, you can get your ass kicked.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Rob Griffin Show. I want to thank you so much for being here, and I'm so happy you're here. Now tonight, I don't have a whole lot of time for small talk. In fact, we got to get right into the information because I have a lot to give you and a short time to give it. Tonight, we're going to be talking about safety for your children or grandchildren or whatever the case may be. The sad reality of the world that we live in today is just different than when we grew up. Now, when I was a kid, a long time ago, the internet did not exist. In fact, we would come home from school, drop our books, and be immediately kicked out of the house. Like literally go outside and play. Does anybody remember those days besides me? Go outside and play. And that meant we went out and we explored. We went into the woods. We built forts. We went out and rode our bicycles and built ramps and jumped ramps that probably should have hurt us or killed us. I would remember coming home bloody almost every other week because I crashed on a ramp or had some type of accident, jumping my bike over said stack of tires with a piece of plywood on it. Crazy old days. You remember those days besides me? Good times. But the sad reality of our world today is that the dangers that we had back then of falling off a bike, falling off your motorcycle, or crashing your three-wheeler like I did as well, those days are still there for the people who live in the rural communities or places where that is still a thing. But for the vast majority of the public out there, their children are living on the internet, and they're staying at home most of the time. It's difficult for me to get my kids to go outside, and it makes me like literally shocked that because I used to love to be outside. If I got stuck in the house, that means I was being punished, right? And so for these kids today, it's just a different world. Now, if you've been watching the news, there's this a big thing happening right now. There's a lot of drugs pouring over our southern border, right? There's this one particular drug that did not exist back when I was a police officer. Granted, we had all the normal stuff. We had meth, we had heroin, we had all the MDMA and all that crazy stuff that people are using today, but nothing that would be like one pill and kill, right? There's a new drug out there. It's called fentanyl. If you're not familiar with it, Google it, look it up. It is extremely potent. It's literally 50 times the strength of heroin. And okay, so there's a strong drug, right? Avoid it. Don't take it. Don't touch it, right? The problem is there's a lot of people that are now using said drug to create fake drugs that look like the real thing. Like you can see there's a little image I have here on the screen of what a real Xanax looks like versus a fake one, right? Or a real Lortab or a real painkiller looks like versus a fake one. What they're doing, they're using this fentanyl and they're putting in these fake pills and they're selling it on the street. Now, if you're a blown out drug addict that's used to taking this stuff, it'll be a great high for you. You're going to have a good time. You're going to probably pass out, but you're not going to die. But if you are a normal human being like myself or 99.9999% of the people that I know or be around, that one pill will kill you graveyard dead. Why do I say that? Because that thing is ridiculous. Now, here's a little image that I found online. Now, look at this. That's a penny and a few grains of what looks like salt next to that penny. That is enough to make you dead. Think about that for a second, folks. There are a lot of kids or a lot of people in the United States that were handed a pill they thought were a Xanax, a Lortab, or a Percocet, or whatever they thought they were getting. They ingested said pill, and they are no longer with us today because it literally takes a few grains of salt size of this narcotic to put you in a forever box, to make you a memory and to make us cry and be sad about whatever happened to my good friend, insert name. I've had a good friend of mine that died of an overdose. Now, it wasn't fentanyl because it didn't exist back then, but I'm just saying I've seen it, felt it personally, and it just sucks, And if you don't know what overdosing looks like, it can be very ugly. It can be temporary for some. One of the worst fights I ever gotten into my career, I got sent to a McDonald's in Henderson. I won't give you the Sunset and Boulder Highway. There's a McDonald's right there. And they sent me there because they had some guy that passed out in the stall and he had a syringe in his arm. He was shooting up heroin. The fire department shows up. I showed up. He still had the needle in his arm, but he was comatose. He was in the bathroom, like out cold, right? They gave him a shot of Narcan. If you don't know what Narcan is, or I would suggest you probably get some Narcan. It's not a bad idea. But they administer it through their nose typically. And what it does, it instantly counteracts the effects of the drug and can save someone who's overdosing. This guy got up. We were in a fight. Needle popped out. Blood squirting everywhere. It was not pleasant. Okay. The good news was he lived. Okay. I got sent to a different call a few weeks later. That was probably one of the most problematic calls I've ever been on in my career. I won't call it the worst, but it was damn bad. It was pretty freaking just sad. Okay. And we always talk about PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. This is one particular call that gave me a pretty good dose of PTSD. I get sent to a call, and I can't remember if it came out as a 446, which is a drug call, or if it came out as a 405Z or attempted suicide. But I arrive in this apartment, and I find this young man in the room, and it was weird. Like he was, how can I explain how he was laying there? And he was not laying down at all. In fact, he was on his knees. Now imagine if you were in a position for like communion or your church, and you're on your knees, right? And your hands are in front of you, like kind of like this, and you're sitting upright, like you were going to, like just be doing a prayer or something like that. Okay. Imagine that person dropping their arms to their side and putting them behind them. And then they lean way back and kind of stare towards the ceiling. So this dude was in that position. Okay. And I can't talk to you and do it properly, but imagine his mouth is up in the air. His head is leaning way back, but he didn't fall over. He's on his knees. Okay. If you've never seen someone who's dying from an overdose, it's one of the most horrific things you're ever going to see. Okay. So this guy was arms back, head back, leaning way back. And the thing that really struck me was he had this, I can't remember if it was white or gray, or he had this foam coming out of his mouth. And it was real thick, almost looked like shaving cream. Not the density of shaving cream, but like a thick, bubbly suds coming out of his mouth. And it was growing incrementally by the second. Big bubble turned into a stream of foul shit that I can't even imagine what it was coming out of his mouth. And as sad and as horrific as that was, it didn't really bother me because I was a cop. I've seen dead bodies. I've seen people who committed suicide. I've seen a whole lot of crazy shit that's sad and gross and nasty. And as sad as it was, it didn't really like give me PTSD. Like I could have left there and went and had lunch, no problem, because that was just the world that we lived in, right? That was not really got me. What got me was mom showing up after the fact. Now imagine a middle-aged woman walking into this little apartment, having an argument with herself. Now she was literally like, I told him we never should have done this. I'm just sick and tired of his shit. And she was like, I wasn't sure if she was mad or sad. And what I found out later is her son had been a very robust drug addict for a very long time. Excuse me. He called his mom numerous occasions. Can you come pick me up? I'm not feeling good. I don't feel well. And she told him, she said, and I don't know when, or I wasn't there, but she said, if you ever do this again, I'm not coming to pick you up. I'm sick and tired of this shit. I'm not doing it anymore. And so this call had come that night. She told him, figure it out. I'm tired. I can't do this no more. And that was the one night that it was just a little bit too much. So I'm there in the apartment, right? There's a couple of cops there. We're doing photographs of crime scene, techs on scene. And mom shows up and melts. Like she just folded into herself in despair. Because he called her and asked her to come pick me up. She told him, figure it out. And her son passed that night. And I was there trying to console her and trying to get her, hey, man, it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? And what is this guy, the guy in uniform who doesn't know her, don't know jack shit about her kid or jack shit about her, to try to calm her and I guess to help her deal with this monumental situation that was in front of her. It was just sad. It was all out sad. More so than I can ever imagine, So I would suggest you have a talk with your children and say, don't ever take a pill that anyone hands you ever, 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 ever. Because what killed that guy with heroin or whatever it was that night that I showed up in that apartment could be done very easily with one single pill, one single pill a fentanyl laced or fake narcotic could kill your loved one, graveyard dead, instantly. Okay, so make sure you educate your children. I don't care what anyone tells you. Don't you ever take a single pill. Google it and find the disparity that's out there of all these children that have died because they took one single pill because if they trusted a friend and said, yeah, it's okay, don't worry about it, go ahead. And now they're parents without children. So don't do it, please. Please be careful. Now, another topic I want to talk about tonight are abductions. Now, this has become a hot topic recently because of the disaster that is happening at our southern border. Now, I'm not trying to get into politics and blame the right or the left or whatever, but the brutal reality is down there right now, there is a massive influx of sex trafficking, children victimization, and a lot of people crossing our southern border that have ill intent. They didn't come to America to be law-abiding citizens. Now, I'm not here to cast shade on any of the immigrants. We want immigrants. We want them. My wife is not a U.S. citizen, right? So I'm not anti-immigration. I'm just anti-illegal immigration. I want people to come here and do it legally so they can be properly vetted and make sure they're going to be a good fit for America, right? But regardless of what's happening at our southern border, just homegrown idiots right here in the United States, there's a whole bunch of them out there that can't wait to get their hands on your children. Now, this is a little picture that I found online of a case I was familiar with of a guy who literally walked into a Walmart and tried to abduct a child in broad daylight in a Walmart in front of tons of people that were shopping that day. There's even cases out there where this one particular guy, I can't remember what city and state it was, I'll have to look it up. He goes into a Walmart, kidnaps a little girl, takes her into the bathroom, shaves her head, and tries to escape with her outside of the store without her being noticed because he had changed her the way she looks, right? He cut all her hair off, he shaved her head, make her look maybe more like a boy so he could like wrap her in a jacket and sneak her out of the store. Thank God they caught that guy and was able to save that little girl. It happens a lot, folks. And these guys will target your children. So my question to you would be is, are you prepared for this? Do you have a plan when you go into a store? Are you going to be able to be there with your children to make sure that people like these guys don't get them? Now, each one of the people you see here, one's white, one's black, one's maybe Asian or Hispanic, I'm not sure. One's a female there. They have actively targeted and tried to kidnap children in broad daylight in big box retail stores. Now think about that for a second. You're just there to go buy school supplies or you get your groceries, right? And one of these assholes right here, are trying to be there to get your kids and take them off and victimize them and sell them into a life of sexual slavery, which just boggles my mind. Now think about this for a second, guys. There was a young lady that was smuggled across our southern border recently that was somehow saved. And when they send that child in for a SANE test. SANE is a sexual assault, some type of acronym. They did a test on this kid and they did some DNA swabs on her body. They found 67 different DNA samples in this child. Now, can you think about what level of humanity has to exist in order for that to happen? And it literally just boggles my mind. It makes me angry. It makes me want to go out and hurt people. So just know this. These guys will target your kids and they're going to try to find them and identify them and get access to them. A goal tonight would be to help you become a little bit safer. Now, how do we do that? We can limit their access to the public when we're out shopping. Make sure their kids are staying close to you. Make sure you monitor their behaviors, checking their cell phones, checking their social media accounts, checking their computer and making sure they're not accessing awkward websites or weird chat forums. And I'm not saying to go be a spy on your children, but it's not a bad idea when your kid's not there to go log into their computer and just see who's contacted them. How are they reaching them? Or what are they saying to your kid? What is happening when you're not there, right? Now, I found, I did a couple of different searches. I found several websites that said, hey, these are the top 10 most dangerous apps for your kids to have on their cell phone or on their desktop or on their PC. And I want to cover them briefly. We're not going to get into the deep dive onto these, but just to cover them so you're aware so that you know what's out there, right? So the first one that came up, the number one, I guess several websites listed them as number one is most dangerous, will be Snapchat. And here's why. Because they allow the message to be sent and then the messages automatically implode or disappear after being sent. So there is this, I guess, false comfort that if I send a message, the person is not going to be able to save it or access it at a later date, right? But you and I know as well as anyone else, I could screenshot it and save it. So if you sent me a nude photo of yourself because I asked you to do so, I could screenshot it, use it to terrorize you for forever, right? Now, the apps themselves are not designed or created to be dangerous to target children. Just like knives were not built and designed to kill people. Like handguns were not created to go do murder, right? Can a gun kill a person? Absolutely. Can a knife kill a person? Absolutely. Can an app victimize a child? Of course it could happen. It's happened numerous times, right? That was not their intent when they were built. But if you give an evil person access to a tool, call it a knife or a gun or an app to target children, then they're going to use it to whatever they want to use it for, right? So I'm not here to say that Snapchat is evil and they're bad. I'm just saying that bad people can access Snapchat just like a bad people can go buy a gun, bad people can go buy a knife or drive a car and try to hurt people. So be careful. So watch out for Snapchat. Now, number 2 on the list was a thing called Ask FM. Now, this one's one that I had never heard of. I did this class several years ago, and there was other apps because things have changed in the last 10 years. Ask FM allows you to go onto a forum and ask questions anonymously. So I'm just user number 238 or whatever, right? And I can ask a question anonymously. But what happens naturally is people will respond. And there's a lot of scumbags out there that are going to send nude photos or porn or stuff like that and try to terrorize your child, right? Or cyberbully them. And so Ask FM is like an open invitation for cyberbully, for porn and stuff like that. So I would have my child 100% avoid it. Now, number 3 there is TikTok, right? Which is kind of funny because I use TikTok. Well, I shouldn't say I use TikTok. My wife has created a TikTok account for me, and we are constantly putting content out there because we found it's a great way to reach people. And if TikTok brought you here to make you a little bit safer, then that's good. But just like the analogy I used of a knife or a gun, it could be used for bad too. So it is a public forum. So if your child is posting on TikTok, everybody has access to it. So be careful in using TikTok. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's evil. I'm just saying be careful. Now, Whisper would be the next one. And the Whisper is a very unique one. It allows you to go out and make a confession online and tell the world your problems, right? I did this and I'm sad about it, or I'm embarrassed about it, and I can do it anonymously. But here's the problem. They use GPS tracking. So if I were a groomer or looking for a troubled youth and I want to go find your kid, all I would have to do is install Whisper and look up and see, hey, oh yeah, there's a guy that lives in McKinney, Texas. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever your child is. And I can now try to message and arrange a meetup. Now, I've talked about these predators targeting children and how we arrested some of those guys on previous episodes. Go look it up. You can see it. We did an episode on Sound of Freedom and some stuff where we had some people that were targeting kids. We were chatting with these guys for hours on apps, very similar to these, and then ultimately making an arrest when they showed up to sexually molest a child, right? So Whisper is one that allows them to use anonymous confessions, but it does use GPS, which is a problem, okay? Now, the next one up there is an app called Kik. Now, Kik, it's a messaging app. It's fun. It's texting. There's a lot of fun things you can do there, but here's the problem. They do no age verification. In fact, you can log in and create an account if you're 13 years or younger, which is a problem. If you have an 8-year-old kid with a phone, you'd be amazed at how smart they can get quickly accessing that app, and which ultimately puts them into the pool and be a potential victim. You know, I used to live in Hawaii, and I loved Hawaii, man. It was so great. And we used to go in the ocean and body surf and surfing and swimming in the ocean, playing in the waves. But one of my friends used to always tell me, he goes, man, Rob, when you get in that ocean, you are part of the food chain, because there are big, bad creatures out there that would love to eat your ass up, right? Bite you, kill you, and make you their meal. And I would say this cautiously. When you let your kids go out into the internet, they're part of the food chain. So be careful. So a Kik has no malicious intent, but there are people out there with malicious intent that will use it. Now, Tinder, it's a dating app. Most of you may be familiar with it. It's primarily used by teenagers, 20 plus, 30 plus. It's a dating website. And basically you're scrolling through people. Again, it uses GPS. Now, could a kid create a fake account, lie about their age, and get on Tinder? 100%. So again, if I had an adolescent child, right, and I checked their cell phone and I saw the Tinder app on there, that would be a big red flag for me. Say, hey, guess what? We're deleting that app. We're never using it again. If you try to add it on your phone again, you'll never have a phone again, right? So Tinder uses GPS. So if you create a fake profile with a fake photo, which happens all of the time. Funny side story. When I was a detective, we had this particular drug dealer we were targeting. Drug dealer, pimp, a real wonderful guy, by the way. Not really. Okay. And I went and created my fake profile on Facebook. This is back when Facebook was the bee's knees. It was the coolest thing out there, right? Now, my profile did not look like this. It was not a middle-aged, overweight white guy. I was a very attractive young lady, very voluptuous young lady, scantily clad, and I would friend request these criminals. And guess what? Every single time, they would accept my friend request. 100% of the time. Now, if I was smart enough to do that to fool a criminal, don't you think a child predator would be smart enough to know what a kid likes and what might be something they would be attracted to? So they can say, I'm going to create a profile that kids like. I'll maybe put, some anime or whatever, and they might think I'm just their friend who's 12 years old in another state, right? So be careful, because these guys are smart. To some degree, they're smart, and they can go out and target your children. So just be careful when you're dealing with those type of folks now, or anything online. Now, the next one up is Instagram. Now, Instagram has been around forever. At least it seems that way. Instagram is an image sharing system, right? And so I have Instagram on my phone right now. I don't use it very often. Now, when I saw Instagram, I was like, dude, Instagram is like, for me, I like cars. I like outdoor stuff. And I would just see a lot of that. And I'm thinking, I haven't seen anything that was even remotely disturbing. But when I did a little digging on Instagram, and I found out that even though they don't advertise it, there is a group out there, or people out there, that can post certain type of adult content. It's not very hard at all to find adult content. So I did a test, right? I pulled out my phone and I opened up Instagram and I said, hey, look, and I typed in naked insert whatever, and just to see if it would show up. And guess what? Instagram blocked the search and showed me nothing. Then I typed in another type of adult name and some type of thing. Guess what? It blocked it instantly. But then, so I said, I guess the website was lying. But then I typed in sexy. I did a search, and guess what? Bam. Pages and pages of pornographic type material, nudity. It's just there with that one simple word. So if you have a child that has Instagram on their page, does it mean they're using it bad? Of course not. Again, like I mentioned numerous times already, with the wrong intent, it could be used the wrong way. Okay. Now, Omegle is the next one. This is a unique one. I was not familiar with it when I first saw it. I was like, what the hell is that? Omega, and I know Omega because when I was in college, some of my friends they were part of the Omegas, and they would have that little symbol branded on their arm or on their body somewhere. So I knew what Omega was, but I knew there was an app called Omegle. But here's the problem with that one. When you log in, you are known as you. It's a video chat service, and guess who you're talking to? The other person is always labeled as stranger. Now, I was a kid. We were taught stranger danger, don't talk to strangers. We learned that in DARE and in high school and in middle school. Don't ever talk to a stranger. So Omegle is an app that is designed specifically for that, to let you talk and do video chat with strangers. Now, if anytime you introduce your kid with strangers, you're gambling. Could they be great people? Of course they could be. But they could also be some psycho that's trying to target your child. Now, the next one up is called Telegram. That's a little paper airplane you see there. It is very similar to Snapchat. It allows them to send messages that explode. So I can take a nude photo, send it to you, and it goes away, right? Never come back to harm me ever again. You and I both know, once it's on the web, it never goes away. Steer your children away from Telegram, okay? Last but not least is Blender. Now, it is a dating app, very similar to Tinder. Again, same premise here. It uses GPS. So if I'm a parent and my kid is on this, and I have some psycho posing as a young person, or some child predator pretending to be a young girl or a young boy, guess what they're going to have? They're going to have the GPS location of my child, and they're going to show up and try to meet my kid. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if you target my children, and I'm sure that many of the parents in America would say the same thing, you target our kids, listen here, asshole, you better leave planet Earth, because we're going to find you, and then no one else will find you again. So be careful out there. Make sure you're vigilant. We don't live in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. The world that you and I grew up in a long time ago, if you're my age or similar, it's just different. There's a lot of people out there that can't wait to harm you, target you, and harm your children. So our job as parents is to be vigilant. Grandparents, uncles, and aunties, make sure we're checking. It's not a problem to check your kid's phone or check their internet access or check their computer to make sure that they're not setting themselves up to be the next victim. Okay. Now, tonight's episode was sponsored by a couple of great friends of mine. Now, there is an awesome book you can find on Amazon. It is called Animals of the African Savannah. If you like coloring books, if you have young children, it's not super expensive, but you can find it. It has the most vivid images where you can go in there and it's a coloring book, but it's not a coloring book like normal. It's a coloring book with ridiculously awesome graphics, fantastic paper quality. It's not the kind of cheap shit that tears really easily. So go find one of those and support my sponsor. That'd be a great thing. Go do a little search on Amazon for that book, and you'll find it. There's also Yasuke's Food Adventures, a child book for children that is clean and wholesome, and it can be a great asset for your kid to help them get their reading habits right and give them story time and all that before they go to bed. It's a really, really good thing for you, your family, and them. Okay, so I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And then do me a favor, please. If either you find us on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you find your podcast, or if you got us on Rumble or on YouTube, do me a favor, please, and like and subscribe. Please share the episode. And that way we can get the word out there so we can protect more and more kids. Because sadly, if you're not watching the news, man, they're targeted more than anybody else. In fact, do you know the statistical information? If you target a child or a female, those are the ones that get abducted more often than not, right? Do you know the stats that if they grab your child and move them from point A to point B, their survival rate goes to 50%. If they move your child twice from a car to a house, it's almost a guarantee that we will never see them again. Same thing applies to women if you get abducted. So what I would tell you as a parent, as a former police officer, teach your kids, teach your wife, teach your girls, boys, that if someone tries to grab them, you fight, scratch, do whatever you have to do, bite, scream, to not be moved. Because if they do get moved, the result is usually not a good thing. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. God bless each and every one of you, and make sure you catch us on the next episode. We got some fun stuff coming for you next week. But until next time, take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
I never imagined a love like yours. Through all the endless nights, you were the one I was searching for. Looking for the one that was worth it, yeah. And all this time, you were right here by my side. You were right here. Through all the pain and the heartaches, now it's all messed up, and I'm walking down, slamming the door. And now I'm riding off into the dark.